Welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be discussing Unromantic Romance by Jeong Seokchan. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button now and get your BL Library card for the BL Library. Before we get started, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiling this manhwa, go ahead and click off now. No worries, I'll catch you next time. For those of you left behind, let's cover some content warnings. There may be references to discrimination, sexism, classism, male pregnancy, mentions of abortion, arranged marriage, theft, animal death, animal abuse, breaking and entering, stalking, invasion of privacy, violence, mentions of rape, BDSM, toxic work environments, mentions of corruption, strained familial relationships, power imbalance, sex work, sex workers, drugging, nepotism, excessive drinking, peer pressure, blood, betrayal, slut-shaming, death threats, breakups, mentions of the military, mentions of cheating, self-deprecation, sexual assault, mentions of mafia, and medical procedures, as these things do appear in the manhwa. But if that's okay with you, let's go and get started. In a world where omegas rule, Oh Yano is a lowly alpha. He's a college student who often freelances as a reporter in his free time to pay his rent. Unfortunately, his articles are often overlooked as he focuses heavily on small, local news rather than the news on the wealthy. His current article is on a cat killer, who he happened to get a picture of. Once again, his article is criticized for being far too local and small. Yano is, of course, deflated. His sunbae at the news feels bad for him, and to help him catch some big fish, he gives Yano his membership card to a famous lounge where the wealthy are known to let loose. Yano still isn't interested in the rich and famous, but he decides to check it out of curiosity. Once there, he ends up alone with someone at the top of the food chain. It's none other than the CEO of Manhwa, one of the most powerful omega in the country, Chu Ga-in. Ga-in is intrigued by Yano, especially since the membership card is from one of Ga-in's closest associates. To Yano's surprise, Ga-in ends up inviting him up to a hotel room, and Yano, hopelessly smitten, agrees. But once they're in the room, Yano is tied up and patted down, suspected of being someone trying to take down Ga-in and in turn, Manhwa. All of the romance and attraction Yano has for Ga-in evaporates, and he's instead in what he perceives as a fight for his life. Thankfully, Ga-in and his men don't find anything suspicious, but instead of being let go, Ga-in fully intends on still betting the young alpha. This leads to one of the most intense and pleasurable sexual experiences either party has ever had. But when Yano wakes up the next day to a pile of cash and no Ga-in in sight, he intends to take revenge for the slight, though he's also still intensely attracted to the aloof omega. All while Yano is hunting down Ga-in, and Ga-in is failing to shake off Yano's romantic and vengeful advances, Yano's cat killer article is picking up steam, and the killer is now hunting Yano. I need to go ahead and get this out of the way. I absolutely adore Jeong Seokchan. Their storytelling and unique art style speak to me on a level that no other creator does. I will always recommend and love all their work unless something entirely out of left field occurs. I say all this to make clear, I am incredibly biased toward Jeong Seokchan. If you're looking for a teardown or something similar, you are in the wrong place. I'll do my best to make this review balanced, but I make no promises. The fact that this is Jeong Seokchan and Omegaverse with Impreg makes this the epitome of work for me. You don't have to wait for the conclusion of the review to hear me say this is a favorite. It just is. So take my comments with a grain of salt, unless you're a Jeong Seokchan diehard like myself, and if so, take a seat and let's talk, cause you're my people. With that in mind, let's start with the art. Jeong Seokchan's work has always been inconsistent and very square. It's certainly not perfect in this series, but as with all their other titles, it's super expressive, which makes up for a ton. Every character is easily identifiable, even in black and white, and becomes all the more expressive when the color switch occurs after the main story. And seeing Jeong Seokchan's work in color is such a treat. Where the art really shines though is in the sex scenes. There are two scenes in particular that I think about all the time and might be the pinnacle of smut art. The scene where Ga-in is giving his first blowjob, those eyes are killer, and the rimming scene. These two scenes show how detailed and perfect this artist can draw, and there are very few others in other titles that can rival these two panels here. I personally think this is worth reading for those scenes alone, but that's just me. Then of course we have their precious baby, who is super cute. This series is just a treasure trove of sexy, sweet, and fluffy panels. And as if I didn't love this enough, the Omegaverse world built for this is so fun. In your standard Omegaverse story, usually the alphas rule everything and the Omegas are nothing more than walking holes and wombs. In this case, the society is actually matriarchal. Omegas and women, thanks to their magical childbearing abilities, are on top, and alphas are nothing more than walking dildos. Well, I say alphas are nothing more than sex objects. Even when Omegas are the ruling secondary gender, they're still treated pretty nicely in Jeong Seokchan's Omegaverse. However, our love interest Gain is a boomer with very antiquated beliefs on the role of alphas in society. It's been trained in Gain that Omegas are superior, and he has superiority issues due to his own trauma of being briefly disowned because he wasn't manifesting. This makes him utterly uninterested in love and relationships, seeing alphas as a quick way to sate his desires. Because of Yano's tenacity and bright personality, Gain realizes alphas aren't just easy lays, but make for worthy companions. Gain remains the dominating power bottom, but he's a power bottom with a heart, and we love that. This leads me to our sweet bean, Yano. He is absolutely precious and a key source for the comedy in the series, which is pretty great. It still doesn't beat out my favorite comedy, The Devil's Temptation, but it's still a good time. The art is leveraged to create lots of fun physical comedy, often sucking all the detail out of the characters, specifically Yano, so there's nothing more than a gingerbread man or something similar. Gain is also pretty funny in his own right, but it's because he's so serious and doesn't even realize what he's saying is funny to begin with. They make the perfect comedy duo, Yano being the goofball while Gain is the straight man. Beyond the comedic aspect, their countering personalities help develop them individually. Gain learns to relax and play around while Yano becomes more grounded and mature. They learn to grow together and become great parents to their daughter, Daon. As much as I adore this title, I have some negative things I need to discuss. I know, shock and awe. The start of all of this has to do with the cat killer. The cat killer pushes Yano to move into Gain's place, which then makes Gain realize how much he enjoys Yano's presence in his life. It's an essential plot device, but ends up fading into the background. I personally don't mind this, as I much preferred focusing on the smut and relationship. However, I can still see how disappointing it might be that such an emotional and scary plot point is just cast aside like it didn't mean anything. It's especially unfortunate since we never actually see who they are, even though we get a brief moment dedicated to showing them reacting to the article, which foreshadows an eventual reveal, but that never happens. There are also a few inconsistencies, such as when Gain realizes he knows very little about Yano, only for him to comment later on that he did a background check on him the first day they met. The pacing is also a little bit odd to me, feeling a bit disjointed and off kilter at times, as it races to the end. I also have to mention how disappointed I am with the ending. Not because it's bad, mind you, it's because it hints at a second child, which was already foreshadowed early on, but we never get to see them. Nothing hurts me more than hinting at children but never seeing them in the story. We got Daon, which is great, but I'm greedy and still want that second baby. I also wish we could have seen their big wedding, but again, that's more of my greed showing. The story is not perfect by any means, but I love it all the same. With all that being said, this gives me everything. Jeong Seokchan, Omegaverse, impreg, child-rearing, humor, smut, and fluff all rolled into one. This very well could have been the pinnacle of Manhwa for me, but it's a bit too short and disjointed to be the best Manhwa I've ever read. Granted, it's pretty close. I do really love it though, and if you want fluffy Omegaverse, it doesn't get much fluffier than this. This is a fave for me, and I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't check it out for yourself. So, have you read Unromantic Romance? If so, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you not? Let me know in comment below. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Bye!